Welcome guys, and welcome back to another video, and today we're looking at a scenario in which France won the Napoleonic Wars. Maybe not a full 100% French victory, but some sort of, alternative Frankfurt proposal that actually went through. So we have France with their natural borders along the Rhine, the Alps, and they even managed to get themselves Catalonia, as this was sooner off since I didn't want to make it a stalemate, I wanted to make it a French victory. They also got a northern Italian puppet, they have a German puppet, and of course Denmark is also expanded to counter British aggression in the North Sea. Outside of that, colonies are pretty much the same, but we are mostly going to be looking at Europe. To start off with Prussia, their borders are slightly adjusted with the Russians. That was just some random adjustments I made to change it up a bit. Most German states were expanded. Hanover was given mostly independence by the British to allow them to expand. Basically, Germany is trying to counter France, led by Prussia and Austria. Since there is little to no balance of power here, with France being insanely powerful, we see very, very early on that the British and the Austrians create some form of anti-French alliance. Maybe eventually we could see some other states joining in, such as Bavaria, or literally anyone who doesn't want to get killed by the French, but immediately there would have to be some form of alliance made. We would also see German consolidation, as Prussia actually got Saxony in this peace treaty, as they didn't get the Rhine region, and nobody wanted to see France conquer Prussia, as that would lead to the end of Europe. We may even see some form of agreement between them, as Prussia wants to conquer all of Germany, and France just wants to conquer everything. I don't know if France would take the proposal and be happy about it. They technically didn't fully win, but seeing as their borders are now fully natural, they also have Switzerland as a puppet. Seeing as they did technically invade them to begin with, their borders now stretch far further out. The Papal States are also very much under their influence. These are the new basically the new French borders, including their puppets/vassals. Actually, no, I didn't even include their German puppet there. Their borders have been massively expanded past their natural state, which means most French people are pretty happy. Obviously, the war wasn't great for them, but they got pretty much everything they needed out of that, even some land out of Italy. What's going to happen first here? Well, I could cover some outside events, but let's start off in Germany. More specifically, Prussia. They have gained and lost some land to the Russians, but most importantly, France now controls many German majority regions in the Rhine. And Prussia is just not okay with that. How are they going to counter the French? Well, they need to be more powerful themselves. In an effort to counter the French power, I suppose, Britain agrees basically to give up Hanover. Many people in Hanover had been looking for independence, and Britain basically says, okay, you can have your independence, and soon after that, Prussia conquers it. With that, they are now able to kind of stop the French, but it is still not nearly enough, and soon enough, there will actually be another brothers' war between Prussia and Austria-Hungary. In this war, all minor German states will join on Austria's side, except for obviously this kind of French-dominated German state. And it's going to go fairly similar to our timeline. They're going to push in, push out, but their main attack is going to be into Bohemia. They believe that if they can capture Prague, Austria will give up any territories that Germany wants. Of course, with Britain overseeing this, they are not going to be allowed to take any actual Austrian territory, but we could definitely see the expansion of Prussia into all of Germany. This time, once more, I'm pretty sure I already mentioned this, but Prussia will not be taking any Austria lands, mainly because if they did take any, the UK would most likely get involved. And Prussia is really not looking for bad relations with the United Kingdom at the time, as they are one of the most powerful countries in the world. with France obviously being there as well. With a fairly powerful German state is set up, yet still significantly weaker than in our timeline. They have lost many lands to the Danish, to the French, just etc. They even lost Memel for some reason. From there, we can look at the Ottomans, who are just going to start collapsing. I'm not covering every outside event, but the fact is the Ottomans would collapse eventually. The Austrians would immediately jump on this and annex Bosnia. Actually, those aren't good Bosnian borders. They're simply going to push down and capture a lot of the coastline. Meanwhile, some form of Serbia is given their independence. Same thing with Montenegro. And these are fairly similar borders to what we had in our timeline, just slightly changed due to the balance of power. Romania is, of course, going to get their independence, and Bulgaria as well. Now, this is still fairly powerful Ottomans, but they're going to be slowly falling. We also see the Russians getting into a few scuffles with the Ottomans, ending up with just a slight bit of land in the Northern Ottoman Empire. Aside from that, Russia, they'd probably hold on to their Persian lands for a bit longer, actually. And as for who controls these Balkan countries, although it will be mostly Russian influence, I am fairly certain that the UK or Austria-Hungary would intervene to ensure that France doesn't get too much influence there. In Italy, France is going to start consolidation. The Kingdom of Two Sicilies, or whatever it's going to be called in this scenario, is not going to be controlled by anyone. They are going to be an independent state right next to the French-occupied Italy. Unluckily for them, France wants to expand, so Italy is going to conquer it all, and soon after that, they're going to annex the Papal States as well, forming the Kingdom of Italy, vastly under French dominance. This is pretty much just a French state. Whatever France tells them to do, they have to do. From here, France and Germany are going to start talks, as war isn't exactly what they want. But Germany most definitely wants all German lands, and France is just unwilling to give up the Rhine region no matter what Germany tells them. So, honestly, I see a war breaking out fairly soon between France and Germany. Who else is going to join in? Well, honestly, even if Napoleon had won the first war, I can see a new coalition getting up. And unless they somehow got the Russians on their side, which I doubt, they're not going to be the victors here. And as soon as they try to expand in any direction, which we're just going to choose a random one for now, they're going to be absolutely destroyed. Let's say the Dutch. The Dutch are still completely independent, so the French go after them, seeing them as an old territory to be reconquered. Sadly for them, the UK isn't very happy about this and decides to join in on the side of the Dutch. With that, France calls in their puppets, and the Napoleonic Wars V2 is going to break out. Honestly, the Dutch, they might have a river line. I'm sorry, but you're dead. You're completely done for. The Dutch are going to die here. That is not much of a question. And from there, I do see Austria joining fairly soon, as they are also concerned about the balance of power tipping too much in the French favor. Soon enough, we might even see some other countries getting involved. Austria is going to attempt to push into Italy, but it is not going to go too well, as they make very, very slight progress, holding some more defensible terrain. As for Germany, well, they have a decision to make here, and as far as I know, and as far as they would know in this scenario, there's only one right answer, and that is kill the French. The Germans, although not being on the greatest of terms with Austria, are on decent terms with the British. That is mainly because nobody wants to get killed by the French. And nobody will be getting killed by the French. During this, Sweden joins in as well, with hopes of reconquering lost lands from Denmark. And of course, the UK does the UK's thing, goes to Copenhagen, just blows it all up, and Denmark is forced to join in on the French side. Now, Denmark is strengthened here, but it really won't matter against the Germans. And a lot of UK's aid. So now this is what it's looking like. Still quite even, if you ask me. I'm not counting in colonies because that's just gonna end soon enough. If you ask me, I'd see Germany, or in this case Prussia still, or actually they would have formed Germany by now, pushing into the French-occupied German state and capturing it in its entirety. They would then attempt to push out into the Netherlands, although that would go less well. Up here in Denmark, it would go very well as they push up the Danish peninsula and capture the entire thing. Sweden will capture pretty much all old Swedish lands as Denmark is really struggling to hold on to those, and with the fall of Copenhagen, Denmark would capitulate. Technically, it was Denmark, Norway, and they still controlled Norway, but it just wouldn't be enough. With one of their allies gone, France is going to start ramping up its military once more. And since they're still technically under the leadership of Napoleon, who, although having aged a bit, is still very powerful, they are going to successfully reconquer the Netherlands and begin to push out into Germany. They're going to use this advance to push past the Rhine and make some quite major gains into northern Germany. Whilst using their strategy of just going off the land, pushing forward, the Germans are unable to do what the Russians did, which is just fall back, burn the land, wait them out. Since these are more densely populated lands and the Germans can't just fall back forever, similar to what the Russians did. Soon enough, the French reached the gates of Berlin. But right before capturing the city, we see a mainly Austrian but joint venture from all the other powers manage to cut them off and recapture, well, not even recapture, but keep the city. The French are then pushed back significantly, losing much of their gains. This is the first major French loss, as honestly the French people, they don't want to go back to the Bourbons, but a massive portion of the French population has already died, and people in the Rhine or in Catalonia really don't want to be under French control. Even in Italy, there are already some major revolts breaking out. Soon enough, the French just won't survive. Over in Spain, calls for war come out, and as the French attempt to, annex some parts of northern Spain, cut off Spain from trade with the UK to attempt to weaken the UK, we see another continental system, except this time it goes even worse as they are now at war with the Spanish. All of a sudden, this is looking even worse. And that's not even taking into account colonies. France is going to make some fairly major progress into Spain, but overall they are going to be stopped. Over here in Germany, they're slowly being pushed back out of core German lands, as nobody there wants to be under the control of the French, and France is really struggling to hold on to that. Over here in Spain, another guerrilla warfare campaign is pushing the French back, and Napoleon is really not having a good time. He's gonna try and sign some sort of peace treaty, but when it's this obvious who's gonna win, why would they ever sign that? A German attack resets up the Dutch government, and with the French having resources tied up pretty much everywhere, they are gonna be unable to hold the front, and the Germans are gonna push past. Once they're past the Rhine River, they are quickly able to push down into Belgium and down towards Paris. With the French capital on the verge of falling, it's really not looking too great. Over here in Catalonia, a joint British-Spanish attack captures Barcelona, the largest city in the area by far. And once again, the blue team is about to capture Paris. Before that happens, an Italian rebellion breaks out, mainly led by the Austrians, not the Italians, but it leads to pretty much the capitulation of this French puppet state. With all of their allies dead and Paris on the verge of falling, as soon as anyone starts to get to Paris, the city is captured and the French surrender. With that, a peace treaty is going to be drawn up, and everything is going to end with a complete Allied victory. Spain is going to get back Catalonia, about the same lands they used to have. Italy is going to be reset up as a powerful, probably a monarchy still. They do get back most of the lands that they lost to the French, though, as nobody really wants to see the French powerful. The Austrians will be given much control over northern Italy, whilst being given back full control of parts of it. Actually, no, they're given full control over the entirety. In other parts of Italy, we see multiple countries being given independence in southern Italy and in the Papal States. But overall, a North Italian Federation is still kept, unified, and there's a good chance that they will reform a much more powerful Italian country later on. As for France, well, in the first treaty they were treated powerfully, and there is no way that they're going to do that again. The Dutch must be resized into a very powerful country to hold back the French. As for the Germans, although they don't technically need all of this, they're going to push for many, many French lands, pushing into the Rhine area and to Alsace and Lorraine. Honestly, the French here, although they would probably be able to keep some form of great power status, everyone wants them to be weakened. Brittany is going to be given independence, and the French will be lucky if nobody else is let go. Corsica and Sardinia are both given over to this new North Italian Federation, and overall, the French are just dead. Germany is going to get all of Schleswig-Holstein and pretty much any lands they want. Nobody really cares about this, so when the Germans say they want it, they get it. As for the Swedes, they will be getting all of Norway and whatever's left of Denmark to form up a new form of the Kalmar Union. Basically just ensuring Allied control of the entire North Sea and Baltic Sea, as Russia, although not joining into this war, was posturing, let's just say, aggressively against the Austrians, and everyone is worried that the Russians will be the next great threat after the French. Overall, though, with the powerful Germany, France will never rise up again. That is an absolute fact. The Spanish, they're strengthened, but after multiple years of war, they have completely fallen, and they will not be able to recover, at least not easily. The French state is returned to the Bourbons, but I have absolutely no doubt that a new revolution will break out eventually, turning them back into a republic. Now I'm going to finish drawing in these borders, and I'll probably just make some future predictions, as honestly, worst part about these days, it's incredibly difficult to basically assume what will happen. As, let's say, Napoleon dies, his son, we don't know enough about him, so we can't really say how good of a leader he is. If any British monarch died, we could say that a new monarch comes up that is absolutely obsessed with Germany, or if a Hungarian rebellion breaks out, since the Russians are not exactly on good terms with them, it would most likely win unless the Germans or the British intervene. It is going to be nearly impossible to tell what will happen after this, but all we can hope for is that the Germans and the Russians don't ally, because that would be the absolute end of Europe. Although the Germans would most likely not be too hot on joining together with the Russians, as Russia has the European population of pretty much all the other great powers combined. As for outside that European population, for the colonization of Africa, I won't put it here in this video, but it would most likely end in more German colonies and much less French colonies. I still think the British wouldn't want the Germans expanding too much to not have them be an unstoppable threat, but a powerful Germany is at this point a deserved role. I'm gonna finish drawing these borders, and as for France, obviously they have been weakened. They are now arguably still a great power, but not nearly to the scale of Germany or the UK or Russia. I've already said this, but I cannot emphasize enough how much Russia could destroy the balance of power. Without France as a stabilizing force and Germany having been empowered this much, if Austria-Hungary collapses, it could very well mean the end of the balance of power in Europe and the complete hegemony of anyone. France rising up again is unlikely, as the UK would step in if they try to do literally anything and completely shut them down, as even the UK alone could stop this weakened France. So that is where I'm going to end off this scenario. It is impossible to tell what's going to happen after this, but I could definitely see the Russians try to rise back up, take the #1 spot in Europe, crush everyone else. The Germans have a very high chance of either killing or allying with Austria and owning the continent. But as I said, since Russia will not help the Austrians unless the UK or Germany helps the Austrians, the Hungarians will be getting their independence in some form. The Ottomans are going to die nonetheless, and the scramble for Africa is still going to happen. Overall, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all next time. Bye.